but I still feel like RNG looks best when Ming is the one starting up the fight. Zeri is open, so for RNG, I feel like you kind of have to take that one away. We saw what Viper was able to do on it in the last series, and things like Vi Wukong, you can go for a trade later on.
Yeah, Wukong also open, and it looks like RNG more interested in going for that jungler. And I will say, we saw in the FPX series that Zeri was picked a lot by FPX, and Viper didn't seem to mind. Viper seemed to have a way to deal with that pickup, but that said, it looks like EDG are going to lean towards the Zeri. Not too surprising, right? Such an incredibly strong pick. My question is, though, what do they go with it? Because Yuumi's still available. We've seen a little bit of Yuumi Zeri. We've seen a bit of Lulu alongside it. But you could also try and get your jungle pick early to match this Wukong.
Yeah, I feel like it either has to be Yuumi or Trundle here. You know, the thing about picking up the Yuumi that's more beneficial is you don't run the risk of them taking it away, compared to, you know, they can't pick up the Trundle because they already have that Wukong locked in for jungle, so they are going to go with the Yuumi, save what I assume would be that Trundle down for third pick. And now for RNG, can look to match. We have seen things like the Sivir lanes coming out to go against it, try and match that ability to just pop off in late game team fights, but this could potentially force Bing onto an Enchanter support. He has played some this split, like we said, looking nowhere near as comfortable. Even things like a Lulu, which you would typically see paired with the Sivir, he's only played twice so far.
So, different look here for Ming, a different look for RNG, and that's exciting. That is playoffs in a nutshell, right? Seeing teams pushed already out of comfort just in game number 1. Now, EDG needs to lock in. We assume a jungler could go with some kind of blind pick in a solo lane, but that feels a little risky. And worth noting as well, it is JJ playing today. Obviously, Junjia playing the series against FPX, but JJ going to be bringing that fight to the jungle.
Yeah, you know, coming in, pulling out the Vi, so wanting to give them some guaranteed engage to be able to get on top of Gala. And now for EDG, I would assume you should just start focusing down this mid pool, considering the fact that Xiaohu, I don't feel like he's limited in terms of what he's able to play, but I feel like RNG are just so dependent on his picks. EDG, though, going to try and focus on getting a Flandre, a more favorable matchup in that top side.
Green looking a little bit nervous there, it has to be said, as Xiaohu with some advice over his shoulder here from Ken. We'll see how these picks are going to go on through. Sejuani banned by EDG. The LeBlanc taken off of the board away from Scout. And I have to say, I've seen Scout's LeBlanc in playoffs. I can't say I blame that ban at all, with a Lissandra answered here by EDG.
No, I think it's a good call coming in, and that's kind of the route I expected EDG to take too. They do answer back with the Lissandra, knowing that that's the go-to pick for Xiaohu. I wonder if they feel concerned about something like an Azir, but no, taking away the Ahri. So they're more concerned about EDG being able to match toe-to-toe with that early game aggression we were setting up for RNG than vice versa. Now, mid lane pool, pretty pinched. Talia kind of being the go-to for me, especially as a takeaway from Xiaohu.
Oh, but Scout's Azir, man. Scout's Azir. We've seen this so many times. There's that very famous clip from this split of Scout literally just 1v4ing on Azir to win out a fight. The man is a monster, and the bird is the word for him. Scout with the Azir in the mid lane, and we'll see if the Talia will be an answer for Xiaohu, whether he wants to go for that roaming, whether he feels comfortable taking that matchup against Azir.
It is rough. That's actually why I thought RNG would ban out the Azir, as to where I feel like you're more fine going up against the Ahri, but now with them hovering the Galio, still would struggle in the laning phase, but at least still having that global presence, and I feel like not being as reliant on gold as the Talia is on the opposing side. Gnar still being left open is where my mind jumps to first, especially with the fact that the Sejuani's off the table. You already have some guaranteed engage to be able to bring in this Galio, with Wei getting his hands on the Wukong.
Kennen being hovered, though. Remember, this did get buffed slightly, and we've seen the power of what the Kennen can do in teamfights across playoffs already. And it looks like that will be the blind pick for Breathe. So now over to Flandre to try and match this one. Things like the Gwen still available, but Gwen can struggle into these kinds of ranged matchups.
I feel like at this point, not too many things that Flandre can go with that are going to do on the laning phase, right? It's more about picking for team comp and being able to play out through these 5v5s, which they've already set up for with the Azir pick in the mid lane. So right now, Hover coming in for the Ornn. Does go with it. Once again, kind of similar to what I feel like RNG's rotation of the Galio was, where you're going to be fine if you are losing out because not as reliant on gold to be able to do your job properly. And now coming out of draft, right, it feels like EDG maybe having an easier time in those front-to-back team fights. They have the Emperor's Divide to push people back. You have this great double front line coming in with the Ornn and the Vi, and all the sustain from the Yuumi, to where RNG, like, sure, some team fighting aspects are there. You have great flanks coming with the Kennen, huge AoE damage with Sivir as well, but definitely feel like they would like to get a nice pace going, so then Xiaohu doesn't have a tough time later trying to break the formation that an Azir sets up.
Yeah, I feel like we've got a bit of a bagger on our hands here, haven't we, Lyric? Because both teams fairly slow in the way that you anticipate these competitions playing out the early game. But the amount of team fight tools on both sides, I'm not sure I can necessarily call one of these team fights because it's going to be so much down to whether or not the Kennen gets a flank, whether or not the Galio ult can connect, whether or not Scout and Viper have the space to take over, or whether things are grouped up because Sivir, we all know, is going to do a wondrous job of taking those names if you group up in a fight. And let's be honest, if there's one player in the LPL who knows how to make a pentakill happen, it's Gala, and I feel like the Sivir is absolutely the pick on this patch to be looking for those kinds of multi-kills. We're headed towards game number 1 here, Lyric, between RNG and EDG, arguably the most historic matchup here in the LPL. And RNG looking to stake their claim once more. They won MSI. They're the reigning MSI champions, but they're up against the Kings. They're up against the world champions in EDG.
It is going to be a tough one, and like we said, coming in, Xiaohu and Scout, 2 players who've gone up against each other countless times, and heck, these two have actually gone against each other 3 times in LPL finals specifically, vying for that championship, so you know it's going to be a good one. Maybe not the most interactive 1v1 matchup, but seeing what they'll be able to do for their teams in this game is going to be critical.
And I feel like as well, you mentioned the 1v1 not being as interactive for this game. You know that's going to change over the course of this series. I'm expecting 5 games here today, and I'm expecting a variety of things in that mid lane. You can see the first strike there for Scout. He's going to be able to get a lot of bonus gold, a lot of bonus damage down across the course of the game using that rune. But it's interesting to see how rune usage has changed over the year as well, because, you know, we used to see things like Lethal Tempo back in the day, or even Conqueror on the Azir. Now that first strike being the go-to. RNG, though, straight off of the bat here, clearing some vision and going for an early invade.
Wanting to get a nice early start, and looks like EDG not even going to sniff this one out. They do have a ward on their Grump, so kind of depending on what Wei does after he goes for blue buff, maybe they can see what his path is, but going to be a nice start for them. And heck, you have the Kennen up in top side. He should be able to get his own pressure. So I'm curious to see if Wei's going to stick around or actually maybe head towards his top side, but no. Is going to stick around. EDG now knowing exactly what Wei's doing, and JJ can react accordingly.
Yeah, you can see him moving over. So we're going to have somewhat of a split jungle. I don't think we'll see much lane interaction. But as I say that, Meiko and Viper moving over. Wei low on HP. The Gromp not reset just yet, but it's close. Okay, Smite comes on out. And Viper and Meiko will be sent away as Wei continues to clear through the jungle. So a little bit of interaction between the players here, but nothing too crazy. And I want to take a second to talk about this head-to-head record, right? We've got Xiaohu versus Scout. These guys have been on the rosters forever. And across the matchups of all time, it's 43 to 32 in favor of Xiaohu in that mid lane. But, you know, recent history at the World Championships certainly would lean the way of Scout. So I feel like of all of the players in this game, these are the 2 that have the most pressure on their shoulders.
Oh, 100% right. And we can already see the impact that's coming through, at least the Xiaohu's trying to make. Because RNG already finding a slight lead, getting 2 camps for Wei, as compared to JJ only being able to steal away the blue buff, because Xiaohu breathes, knowing what's going on, the split map comes out, so they hover over so JJ can't stay any longer. So now we're going to keep an eye on what Wei is able to do with this advantage, and even ending up back on the top side, which is where he's had prio with this matchup, so he should be able to guarantee him that top side Scuttle Crab.
See Ming and Meiko being compared there, and rightly so, as you know, we just talked about Scout and Xiaohu. Ming and Meiko are the other like veteran matchup in this one. Wei trying to make something happen in the mid lane, but you can see there's a ward in the river brush there, so Scout going to be perfectly safe as Wei just tries to help Xiaohu clear this wave up, and that's ultimately the crux of this mid lane, right? Is Azir, he can clear the waves real easy. Galio gonna struggle until he's got a couple of levels up in his belt.
Yeah, and you can see Wei doing that because he knows he wants to pat down towards that bot side anyway. Because of the split map, they were able to get prio in that bot side, so now he's going to be able to go for the double scuttle. Nice use of information coming out from JJ, though, to just be like, okay, I know you're going to go for that. I can't contest you, and goes right into stealing away these enemy camps. For EDG, we kind of said that they're happy. They're at their best when they're looking for those front-to-back team fights with this composition, so you kind of expect them to want to look for opportunities a little bit later on. It's not too bad if they are losing out in terms of camps or some of these early scuttle crabs. Again, a lot is on RNG actually to be the ones to push their lead forward.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, honestly, because, you know, we were looking at these compositions saying it's going to be a fairly slow start. Right? I think that's a reasonable expectation of how these comps are going to operate. But down in the bottom lane, we've got Gala starting with a Cull, whereas Viper actually went with the Doran's Blade. Kind of surprising to see that Viper didn't also opt into the Cull, considering the lane matchup you're in. The odds of action are fairly low, I'd say.
It is interesting, especially because of the Azir pick mid, because maybe with something else, like I've said, EDG have really liked to overload bot lane recently. It has been when Junjia has been the starter, not with JJ. JJ's played a lot more around mid lane, but maybe that was their idea coming in, even with Vi just, you know, coming down solo, but the split map definitely killing any chance of that being able to come through.
JJ clearing that control ward in the brush. I feel like that's one of those wards that sometimes you see teams clear away. Sometimes it's one of those wards that turns golden, you know, gets the ward award for longevity and gets so much information for your team. So good presence of mind there by JJ to clear that one away as Breathe continues to just push this one in. And I do want to quickly mention, Breathe, is on the opposite side of the map, the Dragon will be started ADC reset from Viper. There won't be any contest from EDG on this first Drake, so RNG will get a very early Drake on the board. But Breathe, I feel like, has had an interesting first split on the team, right? Obviously, Bin being subbed out after winning MSI, RNG making this roster change. And I feel like Breathe has very much been on an island for his time in RNG so far.
Oh, 100%. RNG do not dedicate anywhere near as much time top this split as they did in spring. It feels like Breathe did give them more room to just confidently play around mid, play towards that bot side, look for picks in enemy jungle the way that RNG always has. They don't have to worry about Breathe really going down or being too volatile like Bin would, but at the same time, it also does feel like they lost a more consistent carry threat that Bin would offer. And there it goes again, Munch.
JJ's just like, he's the housewife. He's like, I swear I just cleaned this up. Like, how is there mess here again? It's like the kids have tipped Lego on the floor. It will clear some vision, though. Moved out to the bottom side. Obviously knows that the Drake is already gone. A minute and 20 seconds until that Herald comes up. And, you know, kind of surprising to see a Drake so early in the game. Generally, a lot of LPL teams have slowed down on their first Drake takes. But the Herald has still been a high source of action.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, RNG have been one of the teams that have consistently contested it to where maybe we have teams like BLG who will look to cross map, even some of our other top teams like JDG, if they can't get that favorable position, if something's happened with 369 only now, but RNG always look for the play. So now that RNG have hit their ulti points way, you know, pretty close to being able to get us as well, gonna look for that opportunity to make this play on top side and transition it into a Herald, because kind of surprised that RNG haven't looked for any opportunities yet. Wei did try to go for that play on mid, but Azir, of course, incredibly safe pick with his ability to just stash away. And without that entry point from mid, I feel like it's very hard for RNG to look elsewhere on the map, unless Xiaohu just outright drops waves, which doesn't really feel like there's a need before an objective like Herald spawns on the map.
Reset for JJ. He's cleared his bottom half. The jungle can move back up to that top side. You can see Scout trying to get some vision, trying to clear wards. He's aware that the Herald is coming up, and it feels a little bit tense right here. Neither bottom lane moving just yet. I feel like they're almost playing a game of chicken here of like, are you going to move to the Herald? Are we going to move to the Herald? It's a guessing game right now, but wait. The first one to arrive on the scene. There is a ward you can see in the pit there, so JJ knows what's going on here. No laners have moved a muscle just yet.
I mean, luckily for RNG, Xiaohu not really necessarily needing to move, will always have that ult to be able to enter. I think it's a good choice to make your way over first, because Xiaohu did take the Aftershock, playing more as a front line, because he knows he has that guaranteed AP damage coming out from Breathe.
All right, green light across the board here. Both bottom lanes moving over, both top lanes moving over. And we see that the Herald is the thing that'll spark this action. Viper moving into the mid lane to fight for Prio as Wei takes a chunk here. Herald very low, but not actually resetting just yet. 1,000 on it, it's taken by EDG. And now Wei goes down as well. Viper with first blood on the Zeri. It's a disaster to start the game for RNG, but here comes Galio, slams in the middle, but Xiaohu falls. A double for Viper as he chases down the boys in gold, zapping them to death. He's got no damage just yet, but he chases them into their own half.
And for EDG, this is huge as Viper, maybe getting a little too ahead of himself, will be fine in the end. But a huge team fight for the side of EDG. They guarantee that they're able to pick up that Herald. They get some kills. You can see even pushing in waves to be able to try to deny some of this gold from the side of RNG. And overall, we're almost up to a 2K gold lead already.
Absolutely insane lead for EDG, all off the back of this fight. And I feel like Scout had so much freedom here to just poke away the entire time.
The pincer movement coming in, right? I think the most important thing, the fact that EDG's bot lane able to get here first, so they are able to just enclose them in the middle, immediately take down JJ. And once the Emperor's Divide comes out, it's like, okay, Xiaohu kind of forced to use his ulti to try to avoid some damage, but it's already been too late. I feel like when you have formations like that, if you already have the 5-man theirs, I'm going to pause. Okay, JJ is spotted, so Breeze should be fine. But if you're already the 5-man there, luckily you can always turn to one side of the fight if you're RNG in that situation. But since you're only 3 members, your bot lane's coming behind, it pretty much left them with no options of how to find a good fight.
I will say, the jungle did in this game. JJ, 14 vision score to just 7 of Wei. I think we all know that's the most important jungle statistic, as Viper's moving into this bottom side. There was a monkey there just a moment ago, but Wei dipping into the jungle here. Trying to play safe, trying to bait this one out, and then we'll go for the sweep. Give the gold over to Gala, or at least share it with Gala. And RNG won't quite find their opportunity that they wanted here, but JJ perhaps looks for an opportunity himself as Wei moves on to the chickens. JJ doesn't actually have vision, though.
I think the rough thing for the side of RNG is the fact that they don't have the Galio ultimate up to where look at EDG, all ultis available. I guess barring Flandre's, it'll be up soon, but the key ones on this bottom half of the map are, so JJ can look for the aggression, and so can Viper.
Ooh, if that laser hits onto Ming, that could have been real dicey with the slow coming in. But the Herald comes down in the mid lane. Scout will be able to get a whole chunk of that gold alongside Flandre. That's the nice thing about when your solo laners pick the Herald up. You guarantee the gold. In they go, though. Ming on the bottom side, rooted up and annihilated by EDG. And what a start to this series EDG are having.
And just great play on the map. EDG kind of overloading 2 lanes at the same time. Flandre's like, hey, I don't really care about top side. I'm an Ornn. I already have my mythic. Drops wave top, moves mid. That pulls some attention from RNG there and allows for EDG to look to make that play on the bottom side. And is already going to turn into another Drake. So EDG doing a fantastic job of just chaining these plays together and turning them into objectives. But can Wei find the steal?
Wei wants to go for this one. Gala's here as well. Wei just goes in, looks for the knockup, won't find it, but perhaps they can get the Drake instead. Second Drake of the game for RNG here, as EDG just have to back away. They did not have the tools to force a fight. Nice answer for RNG. Not being knocked out of the game just yet. Only 1,000 gold down, and now with 2 Drakes.
So RNG now having a win condition they can at least lean on, trying to get to that soul, and having those added stats to be able to do well in fights. And even though we've hit on that EDG, right, having those zoning control tools and having more DPS to be able to take those fights later on, RNG do still have the ability to take it from the big Wombo combo that they can set up, right? If we can find a Cyclone, you chain that right into Xiaohu coming with his ulti, Slicing Maelstrom's now hitting everyone, the W from Sivir's cleaving. Like, there's a world where they're able to do it, but it's going to be all about the setup. That's why it's been good that RNG have been keeping their vision control up in the early game. But since EDG have found the lead, it's now EDG with that. So I think first step for RNG, looking to clear out some of this vision towards that bottom half of the map.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some mythics being finished across the map here. Interesting to see. It was actually Flandre, the first one to finish his mythic, up in the top side on the Ornn, which, you know, thanks to that Rift Herald, obviously, but not something you see all too often. Gala, though, with the Kraken Slayer there, you can see the Proto Belt for Breathe. I feel like RNG, if they could find a window, would be in an amazing spot to try and find a fight if they can get it before Viper goes for a reset. But the odds of finding a 5v5 with no objective on the map feel slim to none.
No, I feel like all RNG now is can try to play 4-man towards bot side. Oh, wait!
They're just going to annihilate Gala instead. Why go for a 5v5 when the enemy bot lane gives you it on a platter? Double for Viper, and sure, he's behind in items, but he won't be once he goes back to base.
We said it, all roads always lead bot for the side of EDG. And when Viper picked up 3 MVPs in their last series, why wouldn't they? RNG now needing to dedicate members down towards the spot side just to cover. But this opens up for Scout to push in mid. They've already gotten 3 plates there from the Herald that was taken down. So Scout might even be able to break this one down solo pretty soon. Gala and Ming trying to make their way to answer.
Let's take another look. Honestly, these plays have been immaculate from EDG.
Just the ability to close so much distance coming out for the Vi. Great read of them to know that RNG were probably going to start posturing down towards that bot side, and they beat them to the play while they're clearing out vision. So the cease and desist comes in, put a Yuumi on top of that, and really nothing they can do. Luckily for RNG, Breathe has gotten a lot of free time with this topside turret because Flandre has been hovering a lot towards mid. But at the same time, I don't feel like this outdoes the advantage that EDG have been able to find in mid and bot so far.
I mean, mythics across the board here for EDG, aside from JJ, who's obviously gone for the Kenpunk Chainsword as his first item here. And you can see 2,000, almost 3,000 gold lead for EDG at this point as the Herald is up once again, and neither team wants it to go without a fight. Knock up onto JJ, but he flashes out to safety. And now a TP from Flandre into the backline here. No, it's Scout, and the Empress Divide is there. Viper stacking up, but Breathe stuns everybody. And now the knockups come across the team. In comes Xiaohu to try and get some reinforcements. But Viper's still going strong. He's still zapping the whole squad. Xiaohu doesn't have any damage. A knockup from Flandre. This is a 3v5. And EDG, they don't care. Xiaohu forced out of the play. Wei has to clone. But look at the health bars as they go in for more. Viper with one. There's one for JJ. And RNG sent packing. Viper on the chase, looking for Ming, looking for Xiaohu. RNG will escape, but barely with their dignity.
And this is going to turn into potentially a Rift Herald for the side of EDG. I got to give kudos to RNG, though. Really close fight, 2 for 2 overall. I got to be real much. I feel like Scout maybe a little overzealous with that play to go in.
That was a man mode TP. Like,
he sees the opportunity. So I do respect it. You see RNG trying to go in, a lot of mobility on the side of EDG, and this TP scares them off. I get what he's looking at, right? You see 4 potential members that you can knock in, but you're still the squishy Azir that can so easily get burnt down. So RNG find the first one. I feel like the problem for RNG running into the rest of the fight is now a lot of that lockdown is gone. You only have Xiaohu left with the taunt available. He gets kited out by the Zeri, and now this just makes it great to where RNG having nothing left have to retreat, and it just sets up for Viper with all the mobility on the Zeri to just take over.
It's honestly hilarious watching this early game Zeri doing absolutely no damage, but has so much time, it doesn't matter. Here we go, knocking Xiaohu away from the tower. Scout taking a couple of shots, but I don't think it's going to matter on this one. An easy pickup, and EDG, just a roaming death squad at this point.
Perfect timing as well. Dragon about to come up, so they're going to be able to guarantee this one for themselves. RNG trying to answer by pulling them towards the mid lane. Might try to cross map and pick up a Herald, so for EDG, I like that they're sending some members towards mid to get this wave cleared out, because if they can finish this Dragon fast enough, I mean, RNG have no rights going for anything on the top side of the map. So it seems like RNG realize that. They just get some vision down, and that's all they're going to be able to accept for now.
Feels like EDG are coming in with a game plan today, right? A lot of people coming. I'm just going to call out the entire casting team, predicting RNG, aside from me. But crucially, EDG have come in clearly prepared, right? Knowing exactly how they want to play, but being proactive. That was the big thing that we were putting in favor of RNG.
Yeah, and right, me and you were talking earlier before broadcast, and I said, my RNG prediction, more with my heart than with my head, because EDG, I feel like, are actually a pretty good stylistic matchup into RNG. A lot of RNG struggles this split, even going to like their most recent loss against LGD, which you can say, oh, you know, lost to bottom teams, it happens. RNG wanted that win. That would have been, you know, bringing them to a top 2 seed just right out the bat. They'd be in double elim. A lot of it is coming through struggles with their bottom lane. Teams that are attacking bot lane first, I feel like, have done really well against RNG, setting Gala and Ming behind, not giving them that late game damage that they really rely on. They will be able to pick up the Herald this game, but EDG, like you said, is off to a phenomenal start with the way they played this game.
EDG want to fight maybe after the Herald here. It's taken by Wei. Looks like EDG won't pull the trigger. Obviously, with Flandre on the Ornn, there's always the risk. There's always the chance that the fight will kick off. Take a look at this build from Viper as well. Actually going with a Runan's Hurricane as his second item on the set.
Yeah, really interesting. Wanting to try and get off as much of that damage as he can, especially when you have a lot of these like low range, low target units. Seeing what you were able to get done in these team fights will be huge. And also just being an item up over Gala. Looks like Gala's pretty close to that second item being able to come through. But then you look towards the mid lane with what Scout just picked up. A whole item up, Shadow Flame now done. EDG feeling frisky, feeling ready to fight.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, Azir was already going to out-damage a Galio, but now, while he's an item up as well, this mid-lane matchup, it's like a player versus a ward at this stage, honestly. Xiaohu going to need to get big CC down, and Gala be the big follow-up tool. But luckily for Xiaohu, he has that Sivir, he has that Kennen on the top side as well, so they have plenty of damage to work with across the team. But in the meantime, Scout, this is his second tower taken solo of the game. Took the mid-tier 1 earlier on, now will take the top tier 1 as it's traded on the bottom side by RNG.
RNG just gonna have to use a Rift Herald to get one turret, so not even able to do much with it. And I think that's what put like RNG in such a dicey position right now, because you don't really have a lane or a champion on your squad that you can really like cross map for, try and put a ton of gold into, play out through side lanes and picks. I mean, their composition is also built for being a 5-man roaming death squad, going together, setting up that wombo combo, and just trying to instantly take out Scout and Viper. So the fact that they're already at this much of a detriment, and they don't have, let's say, another gear to what they can play for, like, maybe you can send Xiaohu and Breed towards the side lane, try and pick someone off with the globals, but no TP in mid lane means that if EDG look to make a play on let's say, the other side of the map, Xiaohu gonna struggle to be able to join in. So it really feels like those options just are limited. And heck, EDG do have the double TP, so once that's up for Scout, just opening up those options for the side of Edward Gaming.
And we've seen how well EDG have played around using TPs, using globals, and being proactive on that map. I just want to quickly point out, 2-level lead in the mid lane as well. So Scout not only influencing the game or having a massive CS deficit in his favor, but also having a huge experience lead. Here we go, engagements out from EDG. They found Gala, and they're making this game look easy. It's 9-2 as in comes Breed to try and turn the tides of this fight, but Scout looking to answer. Knocked up so he can't get his Empress Divide off, though. And in the meantime, Viper finishing Breed off. Wei will escape. Viper and done, though, as he flies over the wall. He wants a few more kills for himself. There's a double kill. Laser over the wall. Ming has to flash. Xiaohu trying to escape himself. And Viper won't find more. But I'm loving the confidence we're getting out of it.
It's great coming through. Viper knowing how strong he is. 7-0-3 on the Zeri. 2 items up. This just sets up such an easy Baron for EDG. And I can't believe it. They're making it look so easy. We said, I mean, this is such a close back and forth historically. MSI winners versus world winners in EDG. Making it look like child's play.
I mean, it's brutal. This is absolutely brutal from EDG. And it feels like they have no respect for RNG with the way that they're playing this game out. Because, you know, the fight starts very one-sided, right? Breed then gets still up, tries to turn things around. And then just watch Viper on the second half. No fear in his heart whatsoever.
No, does keep running them down, but I feel like the most important thing to this play was actually the setup. Because you typically see a lot of teams play for that fog of war out of brushes. We do see Viper going in with all the mojo. But they had Flandre on the opposite side of River. So they scare RNG, 4 members running at them. All they can do is run towards bot, and they're running straight into an Ornn engage. So great setup overall from EDG, denying the vision. And once again, setting up another pincer movement coming through. That's really been the defining thing in these team fights to give EDG these wins.
And, you know, we talked earlier on about the Kennen wanting a flank. Not necessarily the Ornn flanks, but Flandre doing such a good job to herd the enemy team. And I want to quickly mention the items as well, because Viper very close to finishing an Infinity Edge at this point, and on top of that, has the ornament coming on through. So if he wasn't ahead enough already, he is becoming monstrous in that bottom side with his 7 kills. And now Scout with that Baron could just start to hammer away on these towers. And RNG, I mean, I feel like we're in game number 1. We're only 23 minutes in, and it already feels like last chance saloon territory.
And I feel like for RNG, you have to try and find a way to get a ward behind EDG when they're looking for these extended side lane pushes, and then bringing Breathe in on the flank. That's really it. Trying to find that 5v4, get the huge slicing maelstrom from Kennen coming behind, because if not, EDG just going to be able to keep sieging down these turrets. Fantastic range from the Azir, and we see what Zeri's able to do with that W.
Breathe in the meantime, though, he may be losing a bot tier 2 and maybe even a bot in tower, but he got the chickens. So I think we know who the real winner is. You can see there was a blue ward behind EDG there, now being swept away. And there is a control ward there. Breathe, just going for the walk along, right? Trying to physically get in the flank. Why go for a TP when you can just walk it in? There is a massive gold deficit, but here we go. Engage comes out from Wei. Viper trying to escape the final chapter, used his own. Viper's still okay. His Breathe is burnt down. A knock up across the team. And the gold diff is unbelievable. RNG, they try and make it happen, but it's just more kills for Viper on the Zeri. Laser across the team as EDG will knock down the tier 2 mid.
EDG just taking everything on the map. I mean, this doesn't even look like a playoff matchup. We're getting farther into our playoffs, Munch, and EDG. Everyone on the team performing. Their team fighting was just spectacular this game.
We need to see something different from RNG coming into game number 2 because EDG are here to play. 25 minutes on the clock, and EDG destroy the Nexus before our very eyes. A 10,000 gold lead. Utter domination from the world champions.
They get a strong mid-laning matchup. They get the Zeri down there for Viper, and everything from there just felt like it fell into place so nice. You just can't get the Zeri over. I've been saying this the whole split. I've been asked so many times, every time Zeri's nerfed, one of you guys will ask me, of like, so what do you think? We're seeing Zeri let through more of this, that? It's like, no, just take it away. Sure, this champion does lose, but it feels very hard for it to do so. But I still feel like the biggest thing here for me was like the team fighting coming out from EDG. I still remember people used to reference a lot like the line that Azale talked about at Worlds of like how EDG would approach objectives. This time around, completely different. Just once again, these constant like, pincer movements of RNG stuck in middle, EDG pushing them to the other core members of EDG, and then just taking them out. It was beautiful.
Honestly, it feels like EDG coming into playoffs have gone, okay, guys, this is how we play League of Legends, and just reset and go back to that world's form because the team fighting, as you say, has been immaculate, but the setup for all of these plays and just coming into a matchup against RNG, who across this split, it has to be said, have been the stronger early game team. EDG's early game has not necessarily been the thing that you go home talking about. And they just come in, they dominate the bottom side, and they take over from there. Honestly, it's beautiful to watch.
I think more surprisingly so that it's with JJ, because we said JJ was struggling pretty heavily when he was on the roster. I felt like EDG's early game did really step up and improve once Junjia came in because he was very willing to be aggressive. And when EDG's laners are already so strong and are able to just kind of lane diff you in most of their series, I felt like that was working. But able to bring JJ back in, it still will work out. They had their laners and self-sufficient champions, and JJ was not only covering where necessary in like the first 5 minutes of the game, but then we saw him just constantly hovering down towards that bottom lane and just picking Gala and Ming off one after the other.
Honestly, 20,000 damage in 24 minutes on a 3-item crit AD carry that didn't have 3 items. Like, name another AD carry that could pull that off. Viper is an absolute monster. The early game Zeri, apparently just as broken as the late game with the way that EDG played this out. And I love that straight off of the bat, the first Herald spawns and they're like, okay, time for a 5v5. Time to just go for a big team fight.
You know, I also want to, you gave yourself credit earlier. I want to give you even more credit now because when I asked you about your EDG prediction, you said, I believe in Viper. Look at Viper right now. Look at what Viper's doing, and we see it again. Munch, I wonder if Viper's just going to go and pick up every MVP that EDG, get a win from.
I certainly hope so. He deserves it for this game, that is for sure. I will say the whole squad of EDG played exceptionally in this one. Flandre with some great flanks and setups, like JJ and Scout being the tools to facilitate Viper. But at the end of the day, the way that EDG are playing around Viper right now honestly feels akin to their opponents in Uzi back in the day, right? It feels like Viper is very much the superstar of this roster. And when you've got an AD carry that plays the way that Viper plays, why would you not have him be your superstar? Why would you not play towards
No, and it feels like RNG definitely gonna have to adapt their draft going into game 2. We talked about it in this draft, right? Giving over the Zeri felt weird to me. We talked about them, RNG banning out the Azir because it has been something that scouts leaned on. And honestly, it does really well into pretty much every like top tier meta champion that Xiaohu plays. The Lissandra, the Ahri, the Talia, like Azir's fine laning against all of them. And it's gonna make it really hard for Xiaohu to step up and have that MVP level performance where he's just roaming around the map, just taking over everything.
Well, we came in today, Lyric, saying this is going to be a 5-game bagger. Based on game number 1, I'm not so sure, but we'll see what RNG have to say about that. I'm sure they got plenty more up their sleeves. We'll have to find out after the break.